To the East African nation, where Britain's King Charles has praised Kenyan entrepreneurs for their commitment to resolving climate issues during a reception at the High Commissioner's residence in Nairobi. This comes after the King spent much of his second-day state visit with the youth and environmental activists. Charles's visit, his first as monarch to a former colony, comes at a time when Britain is under pressure to do more to recognize colonial-era abuses. Some notably, Barbados and Jamaica have been reevaluating their ties to the monarchy.
It's such a joy to have this opportunity to meet really quite a lot of Kenyans during this visit and to discover just how things have developed and changed since I was here quite a long time ago, I hate to say. But it has been fascinating to meet all these people, the entrepreneurs, the young entrepreneurs who are doing such remarkable things here, coming up with brilliant ideas, particularly in terms of how to cope with climate change and biodiversity loss, thinking up clever solutions, nature-based and so on. Also how to develop their digital operations.
All right, let's cross live now to Nairobi, where Rise News analyst Mark Bichachi joins us for a discussion on King Charles III's visit to Kenya. It's great to have you on the show. Very warm welcome. I'm going to get straight into it, Mark. Now, it seems like the colonial era is outshining all the other things that King Charles III is doing throughout his visit. Now, one of the key talking points, of course, has been the apology that he issued for the brutality that Kenyans faced throughout the colonial era. How have Kenyans received this apology?
Well, the statement by him fell short of an actual apology, saying it was regrettable and there was no excuse for it. He did not apologize. There was no talk of reparations, and there was no talk of ensuring that there is some sort of repatriation of some of the, for example, artifacts that were taken to the UK, revelations of where some of the bodies of the heroes of the struggle against Kenyan colonialism, where their bodies are laid to rest within the country. So many feel that it was not enough, that it did not go far enough. Yet others are saying that the atrocities have not been addressed. So it is not satisfactory to Kenyans, many of them still complaining that they were not allowed to demonstrate against colonialism and also against some of the things that the British Army who are present in Kenya are accused of doing. So the reception has been cold even among the political elite. There are some who've written articles in the paper saying how that particular statement did not go far enough, did not reach into the British pockets to pay back reparations, even though the king is not the head of government. But that is the feeling that Kenyans have.
Well, thank you, Mark. Now that you've said that the Kenyans who are not thrilled with what the king had to say were not allowed to demonstrate, do you think that King Charles is going to feel the pressure for, maybe when it comes to actually issuing an apology and returning those artifacts as well as the other matters that you outlined, since he's somewhat being shielded from this?
Yes, the only pressure he's going to see is probably feedback from social media, a roundup of comments being made in our local newspapers as well as local television. So it is going to be secondary pressure. It's not going to be primary pressure, as the official delegates that have met the king have not addressed these issues in any public forum. So by and large, he will only get the kind of pressure from social media, from the court cases that have been filed in the UK and continue to this day.
Right. And of course, we know that there's still a lot of pressure on President William Ruto. But again, let's talk about the momentum that this conversation might gain, especially given the awarding of medals to war veterans from the Second World War. Again, it almost feels like King Charles III didn't read the room. But what's the takeaway from this, besides, like you said, commentary on social media, people writing articles and so forth? Once the king leaves, what's the conversation? Where's the conversation going in Kenya?
Well, the conversation has been by and large the fact that one, the king has taken his time to visit a lot of places in Kenya, even stopping at a street food vendor to order Kenyan food. So those things are noted; they are not without effect. But the overwhelming conversation still remains that the king and the UK government in general needs to own up. Now, this must be situated broadly because Jamaica and many of British former colonies and current territories are talking about exiting the union. And this is the kind of pressure that is going to continue to mount. This is not something that Kenyans are quite ready to let go of. The history of it is not going to be forgotten, and it will only continue.
Well said, Mark. Now that we understand that there's a relatively frosty reception, how do you foresee the rest of King Charles's visit playing out, whether it's in terms of the climate change program or the visit to the War Grave Cemetery? How do you anticipate or foresee it going?
Well, since many Kenyans have not been allowed to demonstrate, those who are meeting the king are either officials or people who stand to gain from meeting the king. So I expect these will go off without a hitch, just as every visit that he's done has gone off without a hitch, because the invite list is quite well controlled, as you can imagine. The places that he is going are places where not every Kenyan can access, and therefore it is expected that his trip will go off without a hitch. There's no surprises expected. Even his visit to the port city of Mombasa, his visit to the different national parks will go off without a hitch. He will receive a warm welcome. There will be pomp and glamour at every point he goes, but at the back room, there will be conversations about what is missing in his visit.
Right, and of course, you know, he is a ceremonial figurehead, but let's talk about the international relations, diplomatic relations, economic relations between the UK and Kenya. Do you think this visit is a signal that there's a strong bond and that this relationship will continue to develop and grow? Where do we see things going based on the temperature of this visit?
The closest European trading partner to Kenya remains to be the United Kingdom. It is also noteworthy to remember that within a year of the Brexit happening, Kenya is one of the first countries that ratified a trade agreement with the UK. We still trade a lot of our exports directly to the UK. We have strong diplomatic ties. We have stood together with the UK in many international forums. There is no doubt that Kenya is going to continue to participate in the Commonwealth. There is no talk of Kenya withdrawing from the Commonwealth. And in as much as Kenyans may have an axe to grind with the UK, there is not a love-hate relationship. It is mutual that our institutions, our diplomatic corps, our businessmen still want to continue to trade with the UK. So the gripe that we may have with the UK remains in our sentiments. It remains in the courtroom, but does not affect our diplomacy. Neither does it affect the business environment between the UK and Kenya. And to prove that Kenya has a trade agreement that was signed within a year of the Britain leaving the European Union, and that export-import scenario has not changed to date.
Well, Mark, in 30 seconds, do you foresee the Kenyan government, being on the receiving end of the frustration that some Kenyans feel with how this visit has gone when King Charles departs?
Well, absolutely. And one of the things that is going to happen is that the Kenyan government already is in trouble. It is not in good books with the Kenyan people, given the state of the economy and the state of inflation. So beyond that, there are those who have already begun to complain and say that the Kenyan government is a lackey of the West. We are doing whatever the West wants us to do, and we are complying to the demands of the West, to the chagrin and to the pain of the Kenyan people. So there will be continued complaints about how the government seemed to bend over backwards and not demand what Kenyans are demanding for every day when you look at social media and you look at commentary across the nation. So there is going to be pushback, and we expect that to continue.
Right, Arise News analyst Mark Bichachi live from Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you so much for your insight.